Okay, I am seeing we are about a minute past the top again. We want to do everything we can today to be as efficient with our time. We've got lots of exciting things to cover. Quick note, though, we are recording today's session. Wanted to let everybody know that. The link to today's session will not be automatically generated after the meeting, but we will be able to share the recording with everyone that's attended today, along with all of the slides that are going to be a part of our presentation. Although we've got more than a presentation, we've got live demos, lots to talk about, different ways to sort of understand prompting, the best practices that are involved, and sort of everything that goes into that. So let's go ahead and move forward. I'll also note as well that we are going to be keeping an eye on chat today. I'm joined by my colleague Jason from Planet Technologies. He's going to be watching that chat. So throughout our time today, if you've got questions, things that you want to share, if there's something that we need to revisit maybe, or just recover based upon all of the ground we'll be exploring together today, please, if you would, drop that question, drop that talking point in chat. We will do our best to keep an eye on it. And then we'll save a couple minutes at the end of our session today as well to just revisit everything that we're here to talk about. Very briefly, my name is Edgar Watring. I'm a learning strategist from Planet Technologies. I'm part of the Evolve 365 team. I have had the privilege of helping many organizations roll out Copilot successfully, along with all of the sort of user learning and adoption steps that go along with that. And it, of course, can be very overwhelming as we are sort of all adapting to the new workflows that AI is presenting us. Our goal today, though, is going to be simplifying the process and then provide us with some examples that we can actually start using right away today. Once again, we are keeping an eye on chat as well. So as questions come up or there's things that we want to explore in more detail, minding AI prompting, let's cover it together and see where we end up today. All of that said, though, what's on our agenda for today's session? We want to start things off just noting some basic concepts regarding AI. AI can mean a lot of different things to a lot of the different folks. So we're going to consider AI's place as it stands today, kind of that state of the union, minding our work environments, but not just the types of things it can do for us. Also, how AI really fits into those secure environments in which we're working, minding governance, minding policies. How do we strike that balance? We're going to note that as we talk about AI today, and of course, focus upon Copilot. Next, we're going to consider prompting fundamentals. That prompt is really that sort of icebreaker. It's that question, it's that inquiry, it's that instruction that we provide AI, we provide Copilot. And so we want to note what are some things that maybe we should be aware of as we're beginning that conversation with Copilot. We'll talk about that. Minding efficient communication, and of course, the goal of really successful interactions and inclusion of AI in our workflows. We'll want to consider what should go into a prompt. What do those elements, what do those components look like? So we'll talk about that as well. We'll also consider some prompting approaches. And this is the idea that based upon our situation, what our goals are, or maybe even the type of AI that we're working with, we may phrase or adjust or consider different ways to begin interacting with AI. So we'll talk about that as well. We will have demos throughout our time today just to kind of get an idea of sort of how Copilot is going to behave considering all of these different prompting details that we want to cover. We'll go through a brief prompt analysis exercise, time permitting as well, and really just sort of share some best practices that we should consider. And I'm hopeful throughout our time today that we either discover a new approach that we can take, or maybe just sort of like unlock a new efficiency, minding prompting with AI. Now, before, of course, we move forward talking about prompting, though, we want to be very mindful of safety. AI is very much hyped right now, not only in our workplaces and government spaces, but really our lives in general. And the generative tools that are available to us are incredibly popular. They allow us to do some pretty amazing things. These AI tools allow us to summarize documents, create new professional content. They can enhance our communications and support us in many cases across several steps of our workflows. We do want to emphasize, though, the importance of using approved AI services because of the way that many of these generative tools function and they grow their knowledge. there is a risk of unintentionally exposing personal or confidential data if we're not mindful of the tools we're using and how they behave. The good news, though, is that with Copilot, as we're signed in with our work accounts, then at that point, those data protections, that integrity that we're already used to working with across our other Microsoft 365 experiences are going to be a part of any interactions that we have with Copilot. What's our bottom line here? Many AI tools online do not protect our or our organization's data. When we use Copilot with our work account, those enterprise data protections apply immediately. This means that all of our information stays within our organization's tenant, and none of the things that we share with Copilot are being used to train that model. And once again, as we talk about Copilot, we'll mention this a few times throughout our webcast today. We're mindful of Copilot, not just in general, but how it is a part of our experiences, our work that we're doing in that GCC high cloud, the government community cloud high environment. Of course, when we're working in GCC high, there are additional security requirements that are specialized for that tenant space. This environment is intended for the defense industrial base and organizations handling controlled unclassified information, or what we sometimes call CUI, or potentially other defense-related data as well. It is the most secure environment Microsoft offers for Microsoft 365 with zero tolerance for data exfiltration. How do we maybe know if we're working in the GCC high tenant space of Microsoft 365? If we handle CUI or we are subject to other industry standards like DFARS 7012, ITAR, or we work with the Department of Defense, chances are we are working in a GCC high environment. As we work in GCC high, and once again, minding all of the things that we want to explore with Copilot today, all of that data resides in U.S. sovereign cloud environments, and only screened U.S. citizens manage that infrastructure. Those compliance standards that are a part of that GCC high experience are strict as well. FedRAMP High, DFAR 7012, ITAR, and CMMC. This environment ensures zero tolerance for data leaving U.S. boundaries, and it's essential for defense and national security work. What this means for us, though, and what could potentially impact our experience, of course, with Microsoft 365 and minding Copilot, is that some of the features that are maybe available in that commercial space are a bit slower to roll out than those that we are going to experience as we're working with Copilot, potentially in that GCC high environment. So it's always interesting to speak with a group of folks like yourselves, minding our topic today of prompting. I'm interested if anybody's willing to reply in our chat here. Where do you find yourself in your AI journey, specifically as it relates to prompting? Would you consider yourself sort of in this varying scale here at a number one where we're not even sure where a prompt is? Or maybe we're on the other end of that scale where we consider ourselves professionals as it relates to prompting and the way that we can put all of that information together. I personally would kind of probably consider myself somewhere in between a 4 or a 5. But throughout our time today, everything that we're going to share is going to be relevant to you, regardless of where you find yourself. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm seeing responses already. Okay, we've got some, it sounds like prompting pros with us today. Well, with all of that said, we won't try to linger too long on the prompt fundamentals, but as we go through our time today, I'd wager you're going to find maybe a new idea or a new approach that you could take with your prompting experience. Love to see it. Awesome. All right. Well, with that said, though, with the understanding of our prompting experiences we've had so far, let's just level set, make sure that we are all sort of understanding prompting as we talk about it today, and we all sort of have that same foundation in place. Simply put, what's a prompt? It's that set of instructions, it's that request, it's that question given to AI with the intention of guiding its response. It's like providing instructions to a helpful assistant. The clearer and more specific that prompt can be, the better the AI will understand and then respond with information that we find useful. AI models function as advanced predictive text, and so they're aiming to generate the most likely continuation based upon our input. When we can provide those clear, detailed prompts, we're going to yield better results. Quick example, if we request the AI to summarize this article, it's an instruction, and the AI, of course, is going to do its best to then satisfy that request as we've made it. But when we can provide a specific context-rich prompt instead, we're going to receive markedly different outputs. Why is this important? Well, AI, of course, is not magic, and it cannot read our minds. If we provide short or vague prompts, AI is going to do its best to fill in those blanks on its own. Sometimes this can work. I mean, I think one of the big takeaways today is there's not explicitly a right or wrong way to prompt. But now as we receive that response based upon our vague prompt, chances are the results are not going to be great. They're not really going to be what we're intending to achieve. We'll want to note some prompting skills a little bit later in our presentation here that are going to really help us achieve the goals that we're seeking to achieve and really have that ideal experience with AI. What are some principles that we should be aware of? Let's kind of consider these like a brief what to do that we might want to be mindful of before we even start putting that prompt together. Where we can, let's make sure that we're clear. Let's share that context, any relevant background information, so that the AI gets a little bit of a better understanding what our goals are going to be. Where appropriate, let's set some constraints. Let's define boundaries. And this could be something like a specific tone or a format. And I think this final one here is crucial, that our interactions with AI happen many times in the way of a flowing natural language conversation. So we'll want to begin that conversation with AI, but chances are to really achieve our goal, we're going to need to have an iterative experience where we pose that question, we make that request, AI responds, and then we continue that conversation with any sort of follow-ups or adjustments suited to our situation. We touched on it a moment ago. AI is not magic, of course, and so there are some real considerations that we should take as we begin to work with AI. This first one is key, and this is going to be relevant whether we're working with Copilot and regardless of the degree to which we've manicured that body, that corpus of data against which the AI is working, and that's hallucinations. It's the potential where AI can generate fabricated or sometimes incorrect or outdated information, but present it to us as factual and relevant. Unlike search engines, AI language models don't retrieve information on the internet. They're simply pattern matching to then generate those responses to us. All said, what's our takeaway here? It's so important that we evaluate the outputs that AI is providing us, because sometimes they can sound very convincing, but really be incomplete or accurate. This is especially important when we need to take the information AI is providing us and then purpose it into some sort of a official bit of content, a communication, a document, and all the more critical, of course, as we work with sensitive data potentially or secure data in that GCC high environment. Let's start off with a super basic prompt. This is always kind of fun. I know y'all, it sounds like already have some very meaningful, probably successful experiences prompting and working with AI. And if you can, you might have access to Copilot, you might not. You might be working with a different AI model. If you want to follow along, that'd be great. I'm going to actually drop this prompt in the chat, and I'm going to actually, this prompt is going to happen in sort of two different parts. And this is just to kind of provide us context in the event that we're following along. AI, I would like you to explain what you are. And in our situation here, we're working with Copilot. And I do want to note that I am also signed into a GCC High demo tenant as well. So if you're working with Copilot in that GCC High space, I'm hopeful that what I'm showing you here is very similar to your experience as well. Let's explain. We're going to say, hey, Copilot, explain yourself. Compare yourself to something. It may be something mundane. If anybody's got anything they'd like me to include here, I can come up with an idea myself, but I'd love to hear from you. What should we ask Copilot to explain itself as? It could be a place, it could be a thing, it could be an experience, it could be a person, a historical event. And then there's going to be a second part of this prompt as well, and I'm going to drop this into our chat. Again, if you're following along and you want to sort of provide this same prompt to AI, we're going to provide some constraints or some boundaries here. I'm going to ask that AI compare itself to, let's just say, a summer breeze. We're in summer now. I'm near Washington, D.C. The temperature's cranking up, folks, but it is a gorgeous day here. And then I'm also going to include all of those other elements. So AI, explain yourself. Copilot, compare yourself to a summer breeze. It's a little vague, so I'm interested to see our esoteric. We'll see where Copilot goes here. But make this analogy clear. We want the short, factual explanation on the end of it. And if you're drawing upon this comparison based upon any kind of public sources, I would love to know what they are. Let's see what Copilot does for us. This is kind of a stronger prompt here because we're not just making this request of Copilot. We are also noting the boundaries in which it should operate. And then we also then want to have that sort of factual explanation at the end. And then if it's referencing any kind of public sources for this information, where's it drawing that from? So let's scroll down here. I love it already. Imagine stepping outside on a warm summer day. Can do Copilot. And as we look down here, there is that metaphor. There's that comparison between Copilot AI and a summer breeze, invisible but powerful. No question there. It adapts. It enhances comfort and convenience. Summer's my favorite season, so if you're a fan of summer, I would hope you would agree. There's that short factual explanation. And then, all right, some sources, which can be particularly important as well, especially if, again, we're taking a response from AI and we want to then use it in some kind of an official capacity. We'll always want to ensure that we validate the information that the AI is providing us, Copilot no exception, just to ensure that everything is as factual where it can possibly be. We could continue this conversation, but we've got so many other things to talk about as it relates to prompting today. Let's move forward. Once again, if we do have any questions or something that we want to explore in more detail, please drop them in the chat if you would. Minding successful experiences with prompting. Let's dig a little deeper here, and let's consider this term context engineering. It might be something that we sort of consider to be extreme. I wouldn't necessarily consider it to be extreme. I would really consider it to sort of that concept that our prompts need to be complete. They need to be comprehensive. They need to include all of the important elements to really give the AI what it needs to get us to our goal the most efficient way possible. As long as we provide AI all that background information that it needs, chances are it's going to do a pretty good job and it's going to give us a response that we're seeking. AI, of course, does not by default understand our style, our goals, or our situation. So when we provide that clear context, once again, likening Copilot or likening AI to that eager coworker, it's then going to empower Copilot or the AI that we're working with to really do the best possible job it can. This is going to help us avoid things like generic answers, and it's going to help the AI sound more like us as it's providing that response. This technique is really highlighted as a foundational skill because it lets the AI know what we're intending to achieve, along with all of the other supporting details that are a part of it. So how do we bring this all together? Well, we can make requests of Copilot. We can revisit its response to us and then readjust that prompt in that flowing conversation, in that iterative experience. I think it's probably obvious. We're really just kind of trying to be as effective as we can and get our jobs done efficiently. So what does an efficient prompt look like toward that end? What parts are going to be present? Becca asks, and let's address this just quickly here before we move forward. Is it common to have web search turned on for GCC-H environments? We don't have it turned on. Becca, in my experience, not only working in my demo environment here, it's not uncommon at all. I've actually have an active footprint in a couple customer environments as well that are have Copilot enabled in GCC High, and mining those protections and those governance considerations. and the fact that every organization is going to have its own distinct policy. No, this is a very common experience. You could be in a situation, if you're working with Copilot in a GCC high tenant space, where Copilot either has limited access to the internet in terms of the body of data against which it can work, or you may be simply working with a set of data that was trained based upon a particular date that's accessible to that model. So not an uncommon experience as we're considering the power of AI within the context of secure environments. It will, of course, continue to affect our experiences going forward. But I'm hopeful, though, if you're following along and you're going to be providing some of these prompts that we're going to go over in just a moment in our secondary demo, I'd be curious to hear what your experiences are like as well. With that said, though, what does this meaningful, complete, comprehensive prompt look like? At all possible. And this is applicable to a Copilot experience or really any AI experience that you might have, regardless of model. I would recommend starting off by assigning a persona to the AI. This is going to then empower the AI to gain an understanding of its perspective based upon the topic or the context or the situation, minding that intended output we're wanting to achieve. This next one is probably the most obvious. We're going to need to let Copilot know what we're wanting to accomplish, what we want to get done, what goal are we seeking. Next, where we can, let's inform Copilot regarding the medium in which this content is going to be used. What format do we want this response in? This could be something like maybe a Teams channel message that's going to inform the entire squad regarding changes or the direction of a project. Perhaps this is an email or an email reply. Maybe you're working on some sort of a report or a white paper or some sort of a directive document. When we include that information, it then provides Copilot or the AI we're working with more context, which means we're then going to have less steps involved, taking that content, reviewing it, and then repurposing it into that format that we are seeking. Copilot, of course, is probably in many cases helping us relay details or providing instructions to an audience. So when we can include the audience that this content is intended for, this is going to guide Copilot towards its best possible output, and our messaging or that content or whatever that medium might be may not resonate as effectively with our audience if we're not mindful of how we're saying what we're saying. So where you can at all, let's include that tone just to let Copilot know, give it a little bit of an additional hint regarding the situation or context. We've got like another sort of prompting elements model here. It's sort of an alternate really to the one that we just looked at a moment ago. And what we're seeing here is really fundamentally the same. You know, these are different frameworks, but they include all of the critical elements or parts towards an effective prompt. We'll want to note the goal, what we're wanting to achieve or glean or discover. We should give Copilot the context, details about the goal or the audience. Sourcing information can be important as well if we are providing that prompt to Copilot, but we've got some sort of links or documents or other information that we can include in that prompt. There is then that greater basis then for what we're intending in our final element here to achieve. What's our goal? What's that format supposed to look like? What tone should we perhaps strike as a part of that output from Copilot? Considering that first model that we took a look at with the persona, the task, the format, the audience, and the tone, this kind of provides us like a little bit of a helpful guide where as long as we're mindful at least of some or all of these elements, we can just kind of drop them in here. Again, it builds that complete prompt. It then empowers Copilot then to at least begin that sort of AI journey in a meaningful way, in a powerful direction towards that goal we're seeking to achieve. So how do we begin that conversation? You know, we sort of talked about the concepts surrounding prompting. We also noted sort of all of the different elements that we should achieve when we're ready now to provide that prompt. Where do we start? You know, of course, we are responsible for initiating that conversation with Copilot. And of course, Copilot is very eager then to provide its response as a part of that engagement. What we're seeing here on screen, some of these might be better suited when we initiate the conversation with Copilot, and others of these perhaps are more relevant once that conversation is underway. There is no right or wrong way necessarily to interact with AI. Depending upon the situation or our objective, we might find some of these better suited than others. Again, it's really going to depend upon what our goals are that we're seeking to achieve. Let's take a closer look at a couple of these, and then just in a moment, we are going to go back to our demo. One of the approaches that we could take, or bits of information that could be included as a part of that effective prompt, is going to be the assignment of a role. This is going to help Copilot then pull from the right part of its huge knowledge base, so to speak. When we are a communications expert or we are a teacher explaining something to beginners, the AI is going to focus on that style and the knowledge relevant to that role. This is going to keep our answers more accurate and clear. This can be one of the most foundational techniques to use because it tells AI from where to focus its vast knowledge. The approach that we take if we are a teacher or a coach might be different than if we are, say, let's say an engineer, or let's say someone that's a part of an operations team. We could potentially speak regarding the same matter or objective, but that role, that perspective that it's going to gain by assigning the AI a role is, again, going to provide just a bit more of a direction regarding the approach that maybe it should take as it's then providing its response to us. What might be another tactic or strategy that we could use as a part of our prompting experience? We noted this earlier. AI tools work by predicting the next most likely word or phrase or sentence. AI, of course, doesn't think, it doesn't reason like humans do. So because of this, AI is very good at copying patterns. These would be things like a writing style or a tone. So when we provide the AI with clear examples of that style, again, this could be referring AI to a body of work or a document or other bit of information in which it's wanting to understand the context of format or tone. Those examples can, in some cases, become the strongest guide to drive the AI where we're intending to go. AI is then going to use these to shape its response to really look more like we want it to look. If we don't give clear examples or instructions and we don't include those as a part of our prompt, that output that we get from Copilot might just be generic. It might not quite hit the mark we're intending to hit. The more context and the more examples that we can provide, chances are the better those results are going to be. As we do this, it's going to allow Copilot to leverage imitation. AI again excels at pattern recognition and imitation. So when we include those good examples, it's then going to direct the AI regarding things like a precise style or a tone or a format. It's going to help us avoid the potential pitfall of maybe having a generic or an average type of response. It's going to help us rule out ambiguity. When we include something like an adjective where we simply tell the AI to be concise, well, that's kind of subjective, right? People could understand the term concise in different ways. Concrete examples, as we could include them throughout that iterative experience, are going to help us avoid ambiguity. And it's once again going to drive that output toward a more meaningful direction. And it's going to help correct potentially bad behavior, if we can say it that way. It's once again going to guide the AI in a meaningful direction and help it understand what to avoid. And this is going to, again, really increase the potentials for its output quality. Another prompt tactic that we can employ would be chain of thought. This is where we ask the AI to explain the steps it's following before giving the final answer. Again, AI doesn't think like we do, but it does mean, though, that it will then provide us the sort of reasoning in a figurative sense that it's following as it's providing us that output. Seeing those steps is going to help us understand how the answer was created. And that could potentially help us catch any mistakes or errant responses that we're receiving from the AI. This means ultimately it's going to improve that final response because AI is going to take a more careful step-by-step approach instead of just jumping to a quick guess. This can be useful for complicated or high stakes work. By explaining its reasoning first, that AI is forced to then sort of bake that reasoning in, so to speak, to its final answer, which means that output is going to be more clear, accurate, and then reliable. Large language models like Copilot generate responses by predicting what it thinks we're wanting to hear or what we're wanting to see. When we ask for that thought process first, that AI then integrates our reasoning into the response that it's providing us. It's also going to allow us to really validate in a more meaningful way what it's telling us. As we noted earlier, hallucinations are a potential challenge that are going to be a part of any of our AI experiences. And so as we're taking a bit more of a methodical approach to working with the AI, it's going to allow us then, before we achieve that final output, to hopefully avoid any of those things before we end up heading in a direction that is largely ineffective. Another approach we could take, I actually use this one all the time as I'm working with AI. Sometimes I will actually start my prompt with it, or sometimes I'll simply include it as a part of a complete prompt. And that's where we're sort of asking the AI to prompt us back, for it to ask questions of us. By default, AI is in many cases not going to automatically ask those kind of questions. It's not going to, based upon any gaps that we have included as a part of our prompt or the information that we're referencing, automatically say, hey, I need more information. We're missing some key details here. This is why it's, in some cases, really important for us to provide that prompt, or maybe even start that conversation saying, and this is a great example, hey, Copilot, hey, AI, what do you need from me to really be as effective as we possibly can? When we ask the AI to ask questions of us before getting started or as a part of that initial prompt, we're sort of shifting that dynamic. AI is now moving from acting like a tool to really taking on kind of the role of a teammate as a part of this goal that we're trying to achieve. Why is this important? Well, AI really kind of, in some cases, can kind of be like that eager intern. AI is going to always provide its response. In many cases, it's going to be somewhat of a verbose response. And we're sort of comparing it to that eager intern in so much that it's really striving to impress us with what it can do and what it knows. And it's not likely to then say, hey, I'm missing some details, or I don't mean to bug you, but I need more data. I need greater context to really be effective in what I'm trying to achieve on your behalf. And so when we tell AI, hey, AI, don't hesitate to come back to us and ask us questions or request more information from us, it's going to help us avoid that potential pitfall of an errant or an incomplete response. When we take this sort of reverse prompting approach as well, it's going to foster that teammate dynamic that we have with AI. That interaction is now going to go from being a command response to more of a collaborative sort of paradigm, mirroring effective human management, where a manager encourages a junior employee to ask questions, to be inquisitive, to think critically before providing that response or that final output. And this final one, I think, really key, regardless of what our goals are or what we're trying to achieve. We're seeking valid information from AI. It needs to be accurate. It needs to be complete. It needs to be pertinent to the problem that we're trying to solve or how we sort of envision success. All the more important as we're working with AI in these professional environments, especially where we need to ensure that that communication is accurate. We're taking information, we're repurposing it in some sort of a production environment or an official capacity, or maybe we're going to be sort of drawn upon as a source of knowledge. When AI is that teammate as a part of our overall strategy, having that data accuracy as complete as it can be, again, saves us steps, and it helps ensure really more successful experiences with AI. Let's jump back to our demo environment. I've got several prompts that I'm going to be providing Copilot here, we're going to harken back to some of those examples that we noted earlier regarding the different approaches. And as I'm providing these prompts to AI, you could either take these same prompts and I'll paste them here into our chat if you want to follow along with Copilot or your AI model there. But if you've got any ideas for additional steps based upon the responses I'm getting from Copilot, let's drop them into chat. Let's see what Copilot can do for us here. To the upper right-hand corner, let's kind of clear the slate. Let's start a new conversation here with AI. Let's start with a zero-shot prompt. So this is a prompt that's not going to really harken back to any sort of examples or details, objectives per se. There are a couple elements that are going to be a part of this prompt. Again, I'm going to paste this into our chat here if you want to take this prompt and follow along with your AI model. A couple helpful bits. We're going to draft an email to the team. It's going to be a new project management tool, Microsoft Planner, a Microsoft 365 app I hope we're all familiar with. It's going to be implemented next month, and some helpful elements. Now, again, we're not letting the AI know information regarding our organization. We're kind of generic here in our mention of a team. You know, is this a marketing team? Is it HR? Is it operations? Is it sales? Don't really know. But we are going to highlight the benefits of the tool. And then we're seeking really a brief overview of some training sessions that are going to be available. Again, no real information regarding the depth of these training sessions, the agendas for them, when they might be taking place. Not that we can't start the conversation with Copilot this way. Again, it is what we consider a zero-shot prompt because we're missing some of what might be helpful context. But Copilot's still going to try its best to really get what it's hoping we're intending to achieve here. It is in the format of an email. I love that. We've got that subject, that sort of introduction, hi team, based upon the couple details that we are including here. There's its response. I like the fact that it's giving me these bullet points. It just kind of helps those users just very quickly understand what's going on, what it's all about, what this tool does for us. And we kind of bring it all together in the end just to say, hey, reach out to me if you've got any questions. And that salutation at the end, because we did let it know it's an email, much more helpful. Let's kind of take this same prompt one step further here. I've got it could be argued the same prompt, but we're going to include other elements in it now to which we can refer Copilot. I am going to paste this prompt in our chat as well. It's a little bit of a longer prompt, just to give you a heads up here. So our meeting chat is really we're going to have much more information in it now. Let's see, let me include all of this in my chat. All right. So we're going to refer to this as a one-shot. We are providing, as a part of the prompt, an example in the way of a body of an email here. So I just pasted this here. And let me just say, revisit this draft as an email to the team. So we're letting Copilot know, hey, we're building upon the context of the previous prompt that we provided you, but we're going to include other elements now. So revisit this draft. Same fundamental goals, and now we're providing an example that it should follow in terms of the information that's a part of this email and the formatting of what we would consider a suitable email in a professional environment. Of course, we won't read through all of this as well, but all of the different details that we want included. Again, what we would consider a one-shot prompt. Now we're giving Copilot an example that it should use towards that same goal. Let's see. Much better. All right, there's that revised version of our announcement with those additional details included. This is going to, again, get us that much more quickly, accurately, efficiently toward the goal we're wanting to achieve with Copilot. Oh, it even included my title. All right, I'm loving it. All right, and we could continue that conversation, but we're going to head in a few different directions here with some fresh prompts. Let's try another one here. Let's try what we would consider a meta prompt. Let me kind of reset our context and start a new chat with Copilot. This is going to be the practice of writing prompts, and I'm just going to copy and paste this from off screen because we'll be here all afternoon if I try to type this in a live setting. A practice of writing prompts that helps us generate better prompts. We can prompt our AI, we can prompt Copilot for prompting recommendations, prompting insights. So Copilot, give us 5 prompt ideas to help us summarize long documents more effectively. We're not really letting Copilot know what these documents are all about, the audience for these documents, but with the understanding that this is a pretty common AI scenario, what sort of things should be a part of our prompt as we're wanting to just create a distilled, simplified version of maybe a long documentation that we're working with. Oh, I didn't paste this in our chat. Let's include this there as well. All right, there we go. Again, feel free to copy and paste that and follow along. And of course, as you're working with Copilot, and certainly as you're working with a different AI model, what we're seeing here in our demo may be slightly different. It may be, I don't want to say wildly different, noteworthily, is that a word? Different in noteworthy ways. Because again, in the same way you could ask the same question of different colleagues, or the same colleague maybe in a different setting or a different day, the exact words that they use to respond to you wouldn't be quite the same. So again, your experiences may be slightly different based upon that prompt, but there are those great recommendations. I myself sometimes find myself in situations where I don't exactly know what I should include. What can I do to be the most effective? I got an idea of what I want to get done. So providing all of that prompt and just say, hey, what additional things should I include? How should I phrase this? What other context would be helpful towards this end? We can ask of Copilot. Let's try one more meta prompt. I'm just going to kind of continue this so that we retain that current context of our discussion. Let's paste this into Copilot and just say, hey, Copilot, suggest to me variations of a prompt that would help me brainstorm training topics for new hires. Once again, we're kind of asking Copilot to help us build meaningful, effective, complete prompts. A bit of context here with training topics for new hires, that's going to be helpful toward our goal. There's Copilot's response. And Copilot understands, it has a bit of context here, that I am a learning strategist. So as we use Copilot more, as it sort of builds upon that context of that engagement that we have, so helpful. This could be a situation as well that if I'm prompting the AI or prompting Copilot and I want it to understand my role a little bit differently, I might need to include then that persona that we noted earlier in our prompting elements exercise, where we let Copilot know, hey, approach this goal, work on this messaging or this type of format of information, but don't approach it as a learning strategist. Approach it as an engineer. Approach it as an executive assistant. All important details as a part of our prompt. Let's try one more exercise for now. We're going to try what we call prompt chaining. This is where we break down kind of a larger task into kind of smaller prompts. And we're going to maintain the context of this prompting exercise. And we're not going to intend to achieve the goal or even provide Copilot with everything it needs toward what we're sort of envisioning we want to accomplish immediately. We're going to do this in this sort of iterative experience. Again, something that we consider prompt chaining. Let me drop this into our chat here. And I'm now going to do the same thing with Copilot. Copilot, generate a list of popular destinations in Washington, D.C. Let's just make sure we provide that little additional bit just in case for team building activities. We could have provided additional details as well, like days of the week, with the understanding that not all of these destinations may be open every day. There could be different costs associated with them, or travel related details that would be important for us to be aware of. All right, very good. Some of these places I've visited, so I can assure you that Copilot, at least in some cases, is not hallucinating. Oh, this is a great opportunity for us to note this as well. You'll note now as we are providing a prompt to Copilot that's requiring it to draw information from the internet, or as we noted earlier, potentially if you're working with Copilot and you don't have web search enabled, upon the date at which that model was built, we've got these citation numbers that are a part of its response as well. So Copilot is not just providing us its response, it's letting us know where on the internet it's getting this information from. Super critical, as we then need to, again, take this information, repurpose it in a formal setting, because I'm always going to want to validate what Copilot is telling me before I use this information, or I want to actualize it in this situation for me and my squad. Let's continue to chain this prompt though. Let's say, all right, Copilot, for each of these destinations, what are the team building benefits? These look like great places, but I need to sort of evaluate these based upon making a real world selection. And our goal is not just to have a fun day out. It's really for this to be a part of an overall team building exercise. What are the actual team building benefits that are a part of these experiences? Paste that into our chat if you're again following along. And I'm going to get this next prompt ready as well. And we'll just post this in the chat right now. We're asking somewhat of a hefty lift from Copilot here based upon all of the details we're seeking from all of the responses we got. I could have probably just asked Copilot to give me a top 5 or something like that to make this a bit quicker. But per the nature of Copilot and really a lot of these LLMs, it's making every attempt to be as thorough and complete in its response. I'm going to get this next prompt ready here. And we'll let this for now be the final prompt as a part of our prompt chaining. Let's say, all right, this all looks great. And why don't we make a selection here? Let's say I'm going to say the Smithsonian Craft Studio. For the Smithsonian Craft Studio, we're going to select a particular place. Let's just say, hey, this sounds like a great location for a team building exercise. Let's create that 2-day itinerary. Now, could we have included this all in a single prompt? We absolutely could have, but chances are we would have gotten a whole lot of information. It would have sent us in several different directions. As we change these prompts together, we can then evaluate the responses. And kind of like we did here, we reviewed the response. We found a bit of data that we felt towards our goal we're wanting to get accomplished was relevant to us. And so now we've zeroed in on that craft studio. And we'll kind of let Copilot continue to think here. We'll check back in just a bit and see kind of what it provides us there in the way of itineraries. Normally, I would take us through some prompt analyses exercises, but in the interest of time, I think we've covered a lot of the element-related details fairly thoroughly, and it sounds like a lot of us have some pretty meaningful prompting experiences. Let's just kind of cut right to the tips and tricks. These are tricks I use pretty regularly myself as well. Now, we kind of touched on this a few minutes ago as we then asked the AI to ask questions of us. We set the stage, so to speak. We let the AI know what our task is or the format that we want it in. But we understand that we have blind spots in some ways. We know what we want to get done. Maybe we include all of those other details towards the end we're seeking, but we understand that sometimes we miss things, right? AI is not human, but we are. So we can say, hey, AI, ask me some questions then to then improve the response that you're going to provide me. Here's a situation. What am I missing? Help me on your behalf fill in those blanks. This next one can be helpful. when we are approaching AI, minding some sort of a maybe subjective situation where we're building a strategy or we're wanting to devise a series of steps and we're not exactly sure where to go, rather than, after providing that prompt, simply provide one direction to head, give me a couple different options. Sometimes there are different approaches we can take toward the same goal. And so having really more than one option as Copilot is providing its response gives us kind of a wider spectrum of choices from which we can select. Then if we find one that resonates with us, we can then sort of continue that line of questions with Copilot. And this kind of touches a little bit on those citation numbers that we took a look at just a bit ago. But Copilot, show me your work, not just what the goal is or what this output is, but how did you get to where you got? Knowing sort of how Copilot figured out its response to us just gives us a bit more insight, and it can potentially save us the challenges that go along with things like hallucinations or maybe information that's not necessarily wrong but outdated based upon the last time that model was trained. This is great as well. As you're building a document, so many of us are busy. So many of us have 100 different tasks we're trying to accomplish, and maybe having some sort of a complete or a full body document is helpful. But I bet there's times though where folks are like, "Hey, I don't have time for a long document. Give me a quick answer. Give me a quick breakdown. Give me a frequently asked questions, an FAQ at the end of this document." This is kind of nice because now we've got basically the same bodies of information just in two different formats that can be relevant to different audiences of folks. Copilot, help us create a prompt. Let me know what sort of things should be a part of the prompt. We talked about this earlier. There's no right or wrong way for us to prompt per se. And so we might take different approaches to prompting depending upon what we're wanting to achieve. So in some situations, we may say, "Hey, Copilot, what am I missing? What should I include as a part of that prompt?" Another one we noted earlier here, feel free to ask questions of me. Let me know what blanks I need to fill in. And this one, I think, is going to be particularly relevant if we're in a complex situation. Could be utilizing AI, you're working with Copilot, and it could involve several different bits of content that you're referencing. There could be several players involved as part of a larger project. Sometimes we need to kind of break things down a little bit and be a bit more systematic. It kind of harkens back a little bit to that prompt chaining demo that we went through a few moments ago. As we iterate with Copilot, it's then going to base its responses question by question, instruction by instruction, based upon the context of the conversation. So we don't have to take all of these different instructions or requests and then have separate conversations, but it would behoove us to then sort of break those down. It's going to allow us to be a bit more methodical in our experience with Copilot, and chances are have a much more successful experience with Copilot. We touched on these in great detail today. Being aware of the prompts, the things that were included in them, is really going to help us be so much more effective in our AI experiences. And then that caveat that, of course, technology is evolving. It's not perfect. And the potential for hallucinations, the challenges that go along with, especially in emerging technology and ever-growing or evolving technology, like AI, like Copilot, are things we need to be mindful of, and it's really going to help us have that ideal experience. Finally, I did want to note, as an organization, Planet Technologies have helped lots of folks in lots of different environments, sectors, departments, organizations launch Copilot and do so with confidence and all of the protections and safety that we're noting today. So if there's something that we can do, someone on our team can reach out to you, provide some insights, or maybe help drive that success in your organization. If you would please reach out. I'm going to drop the contact information here in our chat. And in our remaining time today, let's address any questions that may have arisen as we've sort of gone through all of these different prompting experiences. We got a comment here. I'm reevaluating my skill level to a 2. Uh, you know, there's nothing to be concerned about in regards to that. I feel like I very regularly, despite having used Copilot for years now and having worked with several different AI models, I'm always discovering some either new feature or approach, or I'm kind of reevaluating what I feel like I've known, or maybe utilizing different approaches as I find myself in different AI contexts. So I am hopeful that if anything today, we've either introduced you to what successful prompting looks like, or we've given you some sort of a takeaway, a new tactic, a new trick, a new approach, a new maybe mindset to employ as a part of your prompting. And I know it will absolutely result in more meaningful AI experiences. One more time briefly before we end our time today, any questions I can answer or items I can address or anything we need to revisit? Minding prompting strategies with Copilot. All right. Well, on that note, again, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really great to work with everybody, explore this topic together. Once again, the link to Evolve 365 is there in our chat. And if you've got any questions regarding Copilot learning, how you would go about deploying it in your environment, what sort of security concerns you should be aware of, anything and everything related to beginning that journey or deploying it successfully in your organization, that information is there. info@go-planet.com. Sarah does notes. I would have liked this to be a bit more GCC high specific. So, Sarah, a very real concern. I would note that the environment which we were demoing is a GCC high environment with Copilot. So I only note that just to say that we're always mindful when we host these live learning events that as we're providing those demonstrations, we are showing very real world examples of kind of what those experiences would be like if you had, in this case, Copilot available to you in your environment. And then, of course, as it relates to things like, the types of information that we're working with, we noted earlier things like CMMC, working with CUI or sensitive data. Uh, Copilot protects all of that information as we interact with it in the same way it would working with that information in that GCC High and Microsoft 365 cloud. But I will say a big part of working with Copilot in a GCC high environment is going to be relegated to your organization's policies and what sort of things are permissible, what we can and can't do. I think I noted this earlier. We have our GCC high demo environment here at Planet, and I'm actually active in a couple other um, customer environments that are GCC high environments where Copilot is available. And the experiences that I have across those are somewhat distinct in so much that Microsoft provides a set of features, but everyone's going to have a different policy or way of rolling it out. Sarah, if there's any additional questions I can answer for you or insights I can provide, minding sort of what you're hinting at with Copilot in that specific GCC high experience, please, if you would, reach out to that info@GoPlanet, or I'm going to just drop my email in chat as well. So again, if you've got any additional questions or information that you're seeking, please feel free to reach out. We want every voice heard, and we want everyone equipped for success. All right, everybody. Again, my name is Edgar. I'm part of the Evolve 365 team with Planet Technologies. It's been a pleasure working with you all today, and I hope to see you in a future learning session. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.